Welcome to the Exceptional Sales Leader Podcast with Darren Mitchell. If you're a sales leader looking to take your leadership to a whole new level, then this is the podcast for you. We'll be exploring tips, techniques, and strategies to help you take your leadership to the exceptional level and allow you to enjoy more money, more meaning, and better sales results. Welcome back to the Exceptional Sales Leader Podcast, and a very special welcome to a lady coming in from Philadelphia. She's a person who was can I say you're a referral? Because
Yes.
a mutual friend of ours, the wonderful Tanya Pluckrose, suggested that we connect, and we've had a good conversation before press and record, and it's my pleasure to welcome Rhonda Petit to the podcast. Sales and business peak performance mentor, professional speaker, and best-selling author of the book, The Spirit of Selling. Rhonda, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
It's I'm really looking forward to this conversation, and sometimes I say that to I say that to a lot of my guests. It's like you're wonderful. But this one in particular, because a bit of a precursor to this, we've been sort of talking about the future of selling, the future of leadership, and some of the challenges that if organizations and senior leaders are not aware of, we might actually have a bit of a challenge in about 4 or 5 years' time as a generational shift starts to happen. Before we get into that, though, I'd love to get a little bit of your background for the benefit of the listeners in terms of not so much where you grew up, but what's your background in terms of selling, of leadership, and what has led you to now work with organizations, be a speaker, and work with high performing leaders?
Great, thanks. So a little bit about my background is my dad was a cop and my mom was a nurse. And I got into sales when I was 21 years old, out of college. I'm a chemistry major, and I wasn't so hot in the lab, right? So I always had this biz flair for business and free enterprise. So I actually, the summer before I got hired at the chemical company, I actually worked for a recruiter on no full commission, and the only way you could get paid was to go place someone. And I did get my placement in the first 3 months and got a check before I got out of there. But I started my career in selling chemicals. I was the first woman in 1985 in a 75-year-old company at the time, J.T. Baker, which is now Vantor Sciences, to go outside and sell in a car without having done any inside sales or anything. So
Wow.
that was kind of fun. But that's kind of what it was like back then, because there was not a lot of women in the science sales field at that time.
Mm,
And so I went from the chemicals and then moved into the molecular biology field when the human genome and things started and going on, and got into the field of genomics. And it was there that I started. I got promoted into a management role, and I've been managing teams, sales teams in the science and healthcare field for over 25 years. Kind of traveled from genomics and got into molecular diagnostics and precision medicine. And then in about 2019, I there was some changes that were going on at work, and I moved into an entrepreneurial role doing more 1099 work. Wrote a book during COVID called The Spirit of Selling. And now I am doing professional speaking at conferences and things around what I call the disruption advantage,
mm.
leveraging all the changes that are going on and how to really start using that as an advantage instead of being crippled by it. So I'm excited to get that message out that, disruption is actually a signal for you to use as leverage, not something that's supposed to pummel you or push you into the ground. So
Or ignore.
yeah,
Because a lot of
that's right.
organizations, a lot of leaders ignore, and they put their head in the sand and think, just hopefully it just brushes over and I'll be okay and everything will go back to normal as it was 15 years ago.
Right, exactly.
So having run sales teams then for 20, 25 years, as you look back on that career, and I would I would go so far as to say the medical industry wouldn't be that different than most technology organizations. What were some
True.
of the key I guess, lessons that you found out about yourself in a leadership position that has helped you now formulate, I guess, the approach and now the focus in your keynotes and so forth?
I think early on, I had to learn, that being a leader is not a role that if you really want to be a leader and you really want to get people to surround around a mission, that you need to be able to be good at understanding managing up and managing down. I learned probably through some hard lessons the fact about the importance of respect and humility as a leader,
Yeah,
that your team is you're not, it's not you, it's the team who's doing the work, and you're there to support the team's success and to really pull out of them potential that they don't even know they have. I would say that in getting testimonials when I went into my business by myself, went into business early on, some of the things that were interesting that came back from the people that I did work with were things like, Rhonda, the one thing that you always did, that the reason I've fallen a sword for you is because you actually believed in me, even when I didn't believe in myself. So belief is a big thing that as a coach, you want to be able to believe
mm,
and see that there's divinity in every single human being that you're coming in contact with. And if you can focus on that and hold that space for someone, that they can do it and it's in them, and really encourage them even when they fail to get up and go again, you're going to start to pull out, some of those, that potential. And then obviously that, you've got to be the one when you're leading that's going to share the vision, but
yeah,
also raise the bar and the standards so no one stays in an inertia state and is always continually growing and expanding.
I love that. And it reminds me of what John Maxwell keeps saying, and that is the leader is the one that knows the way, goes the way, and shows the way.
Yeah.
And you only need to look a little bit further than the team, but you've got to be further in front of the team because you want them to be following you because they choose to, not because they have to, because the hierarchy says so. One of the
Amen.
questions that came out just as you were talking there, I would say it's quite rare. And a lot of if I'm brutally honest, a lot of sales leaders that I speak with will always give me the verbiage to say, yeah, I care about my team. I care about my individuals, but how much they actually know about the individuals within their team. So do they really care? Do they really have this sense of belief? The question that I wanted to ask you is in that role, how challenging was it? Because you mentioned the I guess the dichotomy of managing up and managing down. How hard was it to maintain that level of belief and build that caring culture when perhaps you might have had some pressure from the senior leaders in numbers, focus, etc. Was that something you had to grapple with, or was it something that you managed quite well?
There were times with certain leaders. I mean, I think we all come across different people and different personalities, and sometimes you have someone that's just really a mentor for you where you learn an incredible amount. And in other times there, you get somebody and maybe they're, because you had that contrast, right? Someone else may not be in that certain place, and you have to, so the challenge becomes what expectations you're going to place on them for you. And how I always felt, how am I going to still be the leader that I want to be for my team despite
Mm,
what's above, what's going on top of me.
mm,
So I think, in respect for upper leadership, I always really would seek to understand the why behind the vision, behind the message, whatever we were doing. Lots of transitions. I was in markets that contracted. I was in markets that were expanding, and the sales, the techniques and the strategy you use, depending upon whether we're in contraction or expansion, they're
mm,
different strategies, right? And keeping everyone afloat or understanding what we're doing and why we're doing it, I felt was like the most important. So I would always, really dig deep into that. And then, sometimes I'd have to tell the team, look, I get it. I hear you, but the decision has been made and this is where we're going. So, you know, we could talk about it all day long. It's not changing. So let's try to figure out together how we're going to make the best of this situation and still
Mm,
come out, smelling like roses because all of you have goals in your family to take care of. And I want to make sure you're maxing out your commission plan and all that kind of stuff. And so we've got to find a way. And I think that's where, when you're a leader, if you really understand the principles of the mastermind, and you can get the engagement of people. You can explain the vision, where we're going. You can explain the why. You can explain to them their position, where do they fit in the why and help show how they can still, find their dreams or whatever. And then you can get those creative juices going and all the different people, the diversity in your team sharing ideas. You activate this other mind and you
mm.
can come up with tremendous new ideas that are totally innovative. And I think that is the power of human potential that needs to be harnessed. And, if you read Genesis, um, I believe when you start treating people like the creators that they are and recognizing the divinity in them, we were all born, every single one of us has seeds of greatness. Every
Mm.
single one of us has that creative ability inside. And it's like, how are you going to tap into that so that you can come up with solutions to problems? Because there is always a solution to a problem. The question is, are you going to dig for it and are you going to create something, or are you going to complain and,
Mm.
resist, try to resist and everything else, which is just blowing a bunch of energy nowhere.
I love that. And it's almost like you've got to have a balance of care and candor, but you can only have the candor if you truly care about the people. So you've got to have that authentic, psychologically safe environment that you can create where the people that are in your response, who you're responsible for, who you're responsible for taking care of, they truly understand and embrace the fact that you're there to serve them. They're not there to
Yes.
serve you. And
Yeah.
so when you have things that are thrown down from up on high, and that could be, you know what, we've got to go in a different direction, or we've got some financial challenges, we've got to do this, we've got to do that. The team is more likely to jump on board because you've got that really solid foundation of care,
Yes.
because you actually have focused on building and hopefully unleashing the potential of each of those individuals. And it's a genuine thing, it's not something that's fabricated.
Yeah. It's like Stephen Covey's book, The Speed of Trust. I mean, I believe in that trust is speed.
Mm,
And that's where I think a lot of leaders, when they get that pressure from the boards or whatever, where they're missing the point. They're missing the fact that all that creativity comes out of trust. And when you start treating people like creatures, right, with a carrot and a stick, like they're a freaking donkey, you're just not going to, you're just not going to tap into creativity and innovation and problem solving and success. You're not going to take a quantum leap
no.
treating a human being like a donkey. We're not a donkey. We're a creator.
Well, it it makes me as you. I had a couple of visions there. One, I had a vision of Donkey and Shrek and Eddie Murphy's voice going in,
Right.
and then the other thing I saw just this vision of a CEO standing on stage talking all about this great vision, but then behind the scenes, all the all the workers within the business being chained and around this great big horizontal wheel, getting slammed and whipped because they're
Right.
not doing what's right.
Right. Like we're back in Egypt, like building
Yes.
pyramids or something, right?
So let's then talk about, as I mean, that's a great foundation. Let's talk about, I guess, the future. All right. So
Okay.
we're in now, and you mentioned it before we press record. We're now in the intelligence age. We're no longer in the innovation age. We're in the intelligence age. And everywhere you look, and every article you read, just about everything on LinkedIn now is has a predisposition to AI. And AI is literally taking over everything. Now, a lot of people have, oh my God, get this away, and others are embracing it. But you wrote an article mid to late 2025 talking about 2030 and the generational change that's happening globally, particularly in sales and how it relates. And I know you've been in medtech and that's where it's related to, but I think it applies to most, if not all, industries across the world. Can you just talk a little bit about the looming leadership crisis that you see that we need to be, not just as sales leaders, but as senior leaders, aware of that if we put some things in place now, we can actually create a clear competitive advantage and not be left behind.
Sure, love to. I'm very passionate about this. So in 2030, by the statistics on the demographics, right, of who's in the workforce by generations, there's going to be the largest exodus of leadership from the baby boomers exiting the market. It's already started in 2025, and it's going to continue. But by 2030, 66% of the workforce is predicted to be all millennial and Gen Z, right? And the millennials and Gen Z, if you follow all the engagement surveys that, you know, put up, do it by generation, et cetera, you can see very clearly that millennials and Gen Zs, they typically are not loyal, maybe like we used to be. And that could
Yep.
be not just them personally, but maybe the environment of what we used to do when we were baby boomers to have loyalty has changed dramatically. And they want to be coached. They want to develop. They're very much into coaching and getting their development and how they're going to grow their skills and things. They grew up in the area with that technology and the advancement. They want to go faster. They want to be mentored. They do not respond well to being told what to do. So transactional leadership of the old days, treating people
Yep.
like donkeys and doing the carrot and stick management, from the industrial age is just, it's not going to work. It doesn't
Mm.
work. It's why they leave. And with the exodus, unfortunately, a lot of companies have stopped doing what we did years ago, which was to have these development programs and these mentors aside to really build the leaders for the future. And instead, what people have been focusing on is buying talent instead of developing it because it's faster, or it used to
Yeah.
be faster. But the big leadership crisis that it's causing is that you're promoting people that maybe were the best in that role to now being a leader position, but they've been given no leadership skills. And with AI and intelligence, leadership is not a matter of gathering information at all. Just, some people have this fear that AI is going to take over their job in sales. It's not, because just like I mean, I'll tell you guys a secret. I'm from 40 years doing this thing. We thought when CRMs came out that our
Yeah.
our jobs were going to be in trouble, and they're not. Okay, so this is no different. Influence and speed are going to be the things, and your communication, your spiritual assets are going to be what's needed, and especially needed to lead. And to get this workforce to engage and maintain it and start, using your IP and your leadership to really
Mm.
build teams and sustainability of high performing teams that you retain, because everyone will agree that retention costs companies billions of dollars every year. So the A players will be going, of that generation will be going to the organizations that are going to coach them, that are going to provide them autonomy, that are going to provide them a path for growth and development.
Mm.
And if you ignore the leadership and everybody exits from the baby boomers, and you have this void, and you don't really have a cohesive plan of how you're going to transfer all that knowledge and that wisdom and the things that that from a company standpoint really cause retention of your own customer base, you're going to be in a world of hurt.
Mm.
a real world of hurt. So I think the big gap is right now is that because of all the focus on AI and all the focus on the bottom line and all the pressures from the board, no one is thinking from a long-term investment. They're thinking all short term, but those who do think from a long-term investment will realize that the competitive advantage in 2030 is not going to be your gadget. It's not going to be the best innovation. It's going to be your people.
Mm.
And the people that are bought into the mission and the purpose of the organization and the impact that they're going to make, that are going to be that have organizations with leaders who are going to bring out all that human potential and really coach and develop that,
Yeah.
the creative ability in human beings, and treat people as creators. Those people are going to rise to the top, and the game is dramatically going to change. So put your seatbelts on because it's changing.
Well, and as you were talking there, I was listening to a podcast, and I think it was a Simon Sinek podcast where he went, and I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but there's I think it's a stationary, some sort of stationary type organization that has built a culture where that human potential gap has been closed, that you've got loyalty where you've got three or four different same generations working in the same organization because the leader invested in the people, in the human potential, and those have built that. Therefore, they've built loyalty. They still get remunerated really well. They still have targets to hit, but the culture they've created, it's really not only psychologically safe, but it's a really engaging culture where people feel as if they're part of the family. They have no
Yes,
inclination to want to leave because
exactly.
it's just this is their family, all right?
Yep.
That's what
Yeah.
we're trying to talk about here.
Yeah. It's fundamental. It's and in the old cultures, where we came from, there used to be that feeling of that family, but because, you know, if we have a choice, the those of you who are out there that are leaders today, you have a calling. You're being called with all this disruption to get out from your pressure and performance and unleash the soul of you within
Mm,
that knows the right thing to do with
mm,
your people. But that means you have to evolve. So you can't give what you don't got. So if you
that's it.
don't, if you're not evolving as a leader and saying, how can I be a better coach? And how can I move from transactional leadership and get into this true transformational leadership, which means I've got to care about my people. I've got to see the divinity within, and I want to bring that out and bring it up to the surface and let them shine. And when they feel that belief that you're transferring the belief in them, just like I think the perfect example, if any of you watch are in the States and you're watching the Patriots right now, and you compare Bill Belichick to Mike Vrabel, and you can see what I'm talking about with this generational thing coming in 2030. Mike Vrabel, the way Bill Belichick ran his ship was very authoritarian. I don't even know if I said the word transactional. Like,
Yep.
he was the boss and you better do what he says and that's it. And he would bench you and he would do all that kind of stuff. He's gone to the college campuses and he ain't doing so hot in North Carolina. Vrabel came in and he said at the beginning of his year this year, I'm going to change the culture. When the early in the season he had a draft pick of a guy coming in, and this is what I'm talking about, seeing the potential in someone, is he had a draft kicker and the kicker missed like three times, and then they hit the last kick, he got it. He went and took that ball and he handed it to the kicker and he said, "You get the game ball." He showed that guy that he believed in him and he
Mm,
saw the potential in him and he let him fail, but he saw the potential in him. And now look at where they're playing. They're poised to win the AFC,
yeah.
championship. And he just wanted
Yeah.
to just get to be top of his division. He's done that and he's doing more. But he's a transformational leader. compared to a transactional leader.
Yes. And the thing is, both can get results. My question is, which one gets the more sustainable results? Which one builds the deep roots of
Loyalty.
loyalty? It's the transformational leader because it's based on unleashing the human potential, believing in that particular individual, not criticizing them when they make a mistake or chastising them for the mistake, but it's giving them feedback. So that's where the candor comes in, but it's designed to help them get better. And it's like, hey,
Yes.
that didn't work, try again. Do this, do that, and change the way you do that and keep going, keep and encouraging. What do you
And
say?
he's getting the whole team to play as a team, and
Yeah,
he gets what that mastermind does. It
mm,
creates another mind
it does.
that's so powerful and so strong that that's why they can make a quantum leap. That's why they can go from like 4 wins. I don't remember what it was, but it was like they were not winning at all, hardly at all last year, and make a huge quantum leap. That's the transformational leadership. That's the
And
challenge. That's the opportunity for
yeah,
the organizations and for any of you out there that are being a leader to get excited about. Because if you're that transformational leader, you're going to be able to make impact on people's lives. And it's not so much even the accolades that you get, but it's what do they say about your legacy? People remember how you made them feel.
mm, I love that. And I'll go so far as to say that the whole team didn't get replaced. There might have been some changes, but fundamentally the team, the personnel, the core of the team is pretty much the same as it was last year. But the culture's changed, the attitude's changed, the belief has changed, and all of a sudden you've got that quantum leap. The question I wanted to
Yes.
ask you though, Rhonda, is there might be a sales leader listening to this right now that's sitting in the sales leadership role, middle of the hierarchy, for example, and that can sometimes be a lonely place, but also a place where there's heaps of pressure. Um, we want to be able to focus on that. We know as a sales leader, the best way to do this is to believe in the people. But then you've got your pressure because you might be reporting to one up or two up or three up, a very hard-nosed transactional leader. What advice or guidance would you give to leaders in that particular position where they've got to kind of manage the expectations of the transactional and still drive the transformational change that they know will be the catalyst for that quantum leap in performance?
I would tell you that you have the ability to control one thing, and that is your attitude and meaning your thoughts, your feelings, and your actions, despite what anyone else around you is doing. And so my challenge to you would be look at it as an opportunity that that transactional leader above you is your trainer on how well you can hold your attitude, your 10 out of 10 every day, all the time, and treat that person that's above you with respect, but also have the courage to state the things that you need to express what you need to express in a very
Mm,
respectful way. You know, that's interesting. I see that's the way you see it. I see it differently, and here's why. And have the courage to take that stand when you need to take that stand, and have
mm,
the courage and belief in yourself that if you're truly doing the best possible job for yourself and your team and your organization, you can sleep peacefully at night, right?
mm.
But if you conform for approval, what I call approval addiction, and you go
Yeah.
down that path of codependency, you're going to, I mean, that's a whole nother story that we can talk about, because I had a codependency issue. When I tell my story and go on my road show, that's like another story. But codependency in organizations is one of the biggest problems in leadership, because when we try to people please, we rob others of the responsibility that they should be taking on their shoulders, and we
Mm,
start taking on other people's responsibilities, and we lose ourselves. We start trading our values of, external validation instead of following our hearts. And those are the things that can't show up in your body and, other areas of your life that just destroy you. So people pleasing is a waste of time.
mm.
It's just a complete waste of time. And so you have to realize that you have a mission. You're being called to lead right now, and you have to give up worrying about pleasing anyone else besides the creator above.
Yeah.
Are you using your talents and doing what you're supposed to do, or aren't you?
Yeah, exactly right.
Right, right?
And you've got to do it. And a lot of people talk about I mean, this word authenticity, I think, is just used far too much. It's become just like a generic term, but you've got to be real. You've got to be real and true to yourself in terms of what you stand for, what's important to you, what are your values, what are your deep-seated beliefs,
Yeah,
and don't compromise on those at all. Now, if there's a big disconnect, then obviously you might have to look at, is this the right environment for you? And
exactly.
but if it
Yeah.
is, then push through because you may well be. How about this? You may well be the chosen one that could be the catalyst to change the entire organization
Amen, brother. I was
because
thinking
of
the
what you've
same
done.
thing.
Yeah.
Amen. Yep.
So let's talk then around because I want to give some people some practical stuff that they can think about between now and start planning at least for 2030 and beyond. You talk about the four pillars of transformational leadership. Can you just talk through at a high level what those are so people can get a bit of a sense of what they can do and start to think about today to start to plan for and get these cultures in a place where we can get extreme performance?
Well, I would say, the trust is fundamental, right? Trust, developing trust. Um, th- when you're in terms of the pillars to stand on, in the Speed of Trust book by Covey, he talks about it because you've got character with your integrity, right? How, like, do you keep your word? And that's building trust. You have to stand on, you've got to be good at your role, what you're doing, your capacity to do your job and working on that. But your character traits, those are going to be part of the pillars to build the trust with people, right? So
Mm.
a walk away thing about thinking about the differences between transactional and transformational. The easiest way that I can say that is transformational leadership is recognizing that the people that you're managing or leading have potential in them, and how are you going to bring that out? And so what a coach does is a coach listens for it provides vision. They've got to provide vision, right? As a leader, you've got to provide a vision of where you're going. You have to be vision casting often
Mm.
so that people know where we're going, why we're going. So the why. And then you want to talk to them about their dreams and what they're doing, and making sure their dreams fits in the dream of the company, right? And show them how it fits and how they fit in the dream. Uh, and then to create buy-in, intrinsic motivation is what you're going after with your people. So are you giving them autonomy to do their work? Are you giving them meaning behind the work, the purpose? And then the third thing would be for intrinsic motivation is, are you helping them develop mastery of what they're doing? So
Mm.
what are you doing to help take their level of standard to the next level? Like, do you do what kind of training you're doing? Like, I
Yeah.
believe right now in this age, the training is not information training on product training and details, because everything's intelligent. So your customers are probably going to know way more about your product before you even walk in the door. That is not the value you bring. The value you're going to bring is the influence and your ability to move people. So if I, running a sales team, I always talk about the three routes that you want to develop influence with your team on. If you're going to give them mastery and get them to be
Mm.
better influencers, one is decision making. So how good can they make decisions? Because decision making, if they're a really good decision maker and they don't waffle on decisions, they're going to be able to get their customers to do the same. And
Mm.
decision making is foundational for trust. Number two is the value proposition of how they do their value proposition. If you're training them on that, you want them to go for perceived value versus, features and benefits. So you really have to think about how can I frame my value proposition on the positive anticipation using my client's imagination, like what's life going to be like, and
Mm.
get them really to see anticipation at moving forward as opposed to anxiety, thinking about what's this going to cost me. So instead of thinking about the investment, think about the return, the
Yeah.
perceived value. And then lastly, the agreement is you better sit with your team and figure out that they have belief in three things: that they believe in themselves, which you as their coach want to believe in them, right? That they believe in the product and they believe in the company. And if you got the trifecta on conviction, your agreement and your close rates are going to go really high because you have a strong bridge for people to walk across. You know why?
Mm.
Because most people don't trust themselves to make decisions. But if
Yeah.
you walk in there and your team walks in there and they have that conviction, like you said you have this issue, we've got the solution, and they believe in it,
Mm.
your close rates are going to go up tremendously.
Mm.
But if you're not looking at those three roots, your team's ability to make decisions, their attitude, their ability to frame the unique value proposition towards perceived value, and
Yeah.
then their conviction in the trifecta, you're not working at the roots, you're working at the top, and you got to get down at the roots.
I love
Build
that.
that influence, you're going to have a dynamo team. And then if you're that transformational leader, who's going to coach them and see the divinity in them and encourage them and get them built into feeling that they have meaning and purpose behind what they're going to do. You're going to not only adapt to change and be able to get your team to adapt, but you're going to be able to inspire the fire within them and then retain them, and attract top talent to your
Mm.
organization because people want to be part of that family kind of an organization where they feel like they're behind something that means more.
Yes. Now it stands interesting as you were talking through that. There was nothing really at the forefront that said, "Hey, it's all about the product. It's all about the service." Now, having said that, what we are saying is you need to have a you need to have a good product or a good service because if not, you won't have a business. So just put that on the side. You've got to have a good reputable product. But all the stuff you've just spoken about, it's not product training because as you rightly said, with AI, people can get information. And I was talking to somebody the other day that said that your buyers are doing so much research on you and your organization before they even engage with you. There's no point. You can't really tell them anything they don't already know about your
Yep.
product. What they're now
Yep.
looking for when they engage with you is this the type of organization or is this the type of person within the organization that I can align with and maybe build a mutually valuable relationship moving forward, of which the product and the solution set becomes part of it. But if I can't
Yes.
see that in Australia we talk about that being we don't want to have it we want to have a no dickhead policy. So
Yeah.
we're not gonna deal with dickheads, right? But all of that is human. All of that is human. So when we're talking about transformational leadership, it's what sort of mentorship and coaching can we provide as sales leaders, but also
Hmm.
what can we receive as sales leaders from our organizations, which presupposes our senior leaders need to be doing the same thing for us.
Yeah.
How do we actually invest more in leadership training? And I talk about the soft skills, which
Yes.
and we've sort of talked about this through this conversation. A lot of organizations tend to, when they do training, they tend to focus their training on the product side or the technical
Hmm.
side, and nowhere near enough investment goes into the soft skills, like how do you influence, how do you have questions, how do you actually build rapport with somebody, how do you actually listen effectively, but how can you have human-centered training and leadership training? The culture piece is really important, and how do you build loyalty amongst your people so that when people wake up each day, they actually want to come in and work for the organization, not because of the organization, but because of who you are as the leader, because how you make
Yes.
them feel. And then talking about the talent pathways and how do we give people a bit of a roadmap to say, well, your future as part of this organization, as part of this family, we can map out. And for some, it might well be they want to have some sort of senior leadership position in the future. For others, they just might
Yeah,
be want to be the best they possibly can at this
right.
particular discipline, and that's okay.
Yeah. And I think it's an exciting time because even for someone that's been doing it, just like me, I'm always learning. And it's like the learning the new game and looking at it, it's like, okay, this is a new game. How do we learn how to play the new game? And so it's the new game now is speed and its influence and how fast can we, take AI and automate the things that just like an old CRM, 20 years ago automate the things that would really help us do a better job. But at the end of the day, it's the people are buying from you based upon emotion and how they feel
Mm,
and your influence ability and your ability to not fold at objections and different things that or the people that are above you or whatever, not fold and be you and be that authentic person that shows up, that's what builds the trust.
mm,
That's what causes the connection, and if you're thinking connection and your magnetism is your attitude, your thoughts, your feelings, and your actions, and they're all congruent, your magnetism is just by the laws of the universe is going to be that much stronger. I mean, it's just the way it goes. You
yeah,
you are a magnet of energy. Your ball of energy that shows up. What are you bringing to the party?
that's it. And that can be a lot of people do that unconsciously, but you can actually do it consciously, which you make a decision as to. And I say this to leaders all the time. Before you go into a customer meeting, before you go in to talk to your team, before you go into an important situation, who do you need to be in that situation? How do you need to bring yourself into that situation so you can stack the odds in your favor to get the best outcome? Everything we talk about obviously is based on ethics, right? Doing the right thing,
Yep.
but how do you resonate that? Because there's an energy that gets, I guess, transposed through that people pick up on. And Bob Proctor talked about the vibrational frequency. That when you're on the same frequency, it attracts. But when you're on a different frequency, it not so much repels, but you can't necessarily connect.
Yeah, you can't connect. That's exactly it. Everybody speaks the law of vibration. And so they're always picking up what you're putting out. That's why
Yeah.
they people can detect commission breath if you're just going in there thinking about yourself. I mean, they don't know that it's commission breath, but they know something's off because you got dissonance, right? You don't have
Yeah.
congruence in your signal.
Yes. Absolutely. Which brings me to another part that I say this to salespeople all the time. You've got to learn the discipline of removing yourself from the pressure of getting the perfect outcome. And that is when you talk to a customer, whatever the outcome is going to be, the outcome is going to be. I'll do everything I possibly can to influence them ethically, but at the end of the day, if we choose to do business together, then that's a great thing. And if not, then I've planted a seed for a future transaction potentially, right? So,
Mhm.
and when you do that, there's less pressure, and there's this energy transfer that then happens to say, well, you know what? I'm not getting pressured to make a decision, and when I'm not getting pressured, it's almost like this person. It's not so much they don't care, but they're not pushing me to close at every opportunity. It's like, okay, amazing things can happen because that's the energy or the vibration or the frequency.
Absolutely. I mean, and no one, when we all get stressed and we have that pressure, we're not in flow. And so
Mm,
why would you want to have your customer not in a state of flow,
yeah,
right?
totally, totally. And the other thing to think about here as well is that particularly in business to business sales, and medtech would be a great example of this, is for the most part, you're not necessarily going to be having a one transaction and never see that customer again. Chances are
Right.
you're going to have a longer term relationship. So the sale begins after the sale is made. So what happens after that first transaction is almost like a test. Are you still going to be there to serve me as a customer? And therefore,
Hmm.
all the things you actually generate in terms of impressions, is this now manifesting into reality? Or are you doing that just so you can win for yourself and I'm no longer going to get any service from you?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And in today's world with when things contracted, over the last couple of years, we've been more in a contraction economy. Trust is gold.
Mm,
Trust is gold.
Mm.
And when you show up as that person that is there's no friction and it's open and it's flowing and it's authentic, uh, that's refreshing and people are going to gravitate to that.
Yeah,
They're just going to naturally gravitate towards it. So it's a
absolutely.
beautiful thing.
And it's something that we as leaders have to continue to do every single day. Don't just take trust for granted. You've got to earn it. You've got to continue to maintain it. Um,
Yeah, it's like a bank account. You want to keep
totally,
making the deposits.
totally. So just to, as we bring this into a close, Rhonda, in the article you wrote, you talked about the path forward and three things potentially that leaders can do in particular. And I'll just highlight them and then I'll give you the floor to maybe wrap up. Um, Define and identify future leaders. So this is all about succession planning and thinking about who do I have and how can I pour into them. How do I then build really deep personal relationships with talent? And this is where I genuinely care about them. And how do I align incentives with long-term leadership impact? So, with those three things, I'll give you the floor to sort of wrap up and give some final thoughts for people who are listening to this that what they can do and how they can embrace some of what we've spoken about today to really set them on a path to be ready for 2030 and beyond.
Well, I think on the last one about some of the things that you might want to consider for incentives for your leadership is leaders need, they're under a lot of what I call G-force today, right? It's like if you watch Tom Cruise go up to Mach 9 or Mach 10, it's like, we're accelerating and we've got to perform and they're really under a lot of pressure. So I think from thinking about number one, the generational shift that's coming in 2030 and thinking about keeping people healthy and keeping stress levels down and psychological safety up, considering giving your leaders maybe a package to have some coaching, have someone to talk
Mm,
to banter around, maybe, where is my magnetism off? Because, if we as leaders, I always talk about the magnetism in your attitude, kind of like a car alignment, right? We all hit bumps in the road. And, the car can be misaligned. And if you just say, oh, I don't have time for that, you're going to be heading for a blowout, right?
yeah.
Well, your attitude's the same way. So, one of the things that when you provide, maybe as instead of just financial compensation, if they got someone to talk to for a coach to really talk to about how they can like make sure their magnetism is off and
Mm,
discuss certain things where they're not feeling pressured because we have to talk to a boss and is he going to think, and all those kind of crazy things. That's a new thing that I think is going to be very relevant and something that, especially as we move to 66% millennial and Gen Z, they're going to really dig. They're going to think
yeah.
that's a cool thing to have a coach.
Mm.
Um, the Go help me go back. My brain just went off on a tangent. What was my one and two? And I'll go back. I
Uh,
heard the third one, and I'm going to try.
defining and identifying future leaders, and then building deep personal relationships with talent.
Okay, so the defining the future leaders, I think, is a question of who number one, defining your culture, your organization, and really looking at your talent pool of who has desire to be a leader, and then who's demonstrating a lot of those soft skills and those leadership skills currently in their current position without a title and really thinking about this is an employee I want to retain for
Mm,
sure. I mean, they know the product, they've been with us or whatever, and this is someone I want to retain. And in taking the time and thinking about how you're going to uh, work on their leadership development and sitting down with them and talking about a plan like that so they know you're vested in them for the long term and it's not like we can be terminated. I mean, sure, everybody can be terminated if they did something stupid, but giving someone some indication that you are vested in them, especially if you see the potential in them in those soft skills that can be leveraged and you're
Mm,
thinking about some transitions to succession planning of people that are going out, you should be doing that right now. Um, and really, pulling those people out and doing some things that are going to, really connect you even on a more deeper level for some loyalty to retain them. And then the first one, I'm sorry, it's 5 o'clock. It's almost 6 o'clock. The first one, what was it? Just say one word and I'll come back with you. I'm sorry. I'm just
future leaders.
future leaders. Okay. So, um, I think for the future leaders in your organization, uh, just developing, thinking about where do you want the organization to be, moving forward, and who are those future leaders. I'll take it even one step further. When you're hiring people today, if you've been hiring for like the last 10 or 20 years, you probably hired, and even a lot of the ATS AI stuff that you've been looking at to screen them out so that you don't have to be
Mm,
bothered to talk to somebody. You're screening out a lot of leaders with the soft skills you need, just so you know,
totally.
because
Totally.
AI cannot grab that stuff, and that's a fact. So
Mm,
you might want to consider, rethinking your ATS software and whether you're going to use it, or maybe put it to the side, or go back and look at some of the ones that got thrown out, because
mm,
a lot of those soft skills AI is not going to pick up on. But when you're interviewing new people to bring in people into your organization, saying, are they a fit and will they be the leaders for my future? You really want to be concentrating on the soft skills of, their ability to, do they have empathy? Do they, are they a learner? Do they have the ability to, do introspection on themselves, and take the time to, say I can always be better? Do they have humility? Those kind of things. Because what's going to attract the top talent from Gen Z and, um, the millennials is going to be that person who's going to give them, their autonomy, and give them mastery, and give them a growth path, and give them
yeah.
meaning and purpose behind what they're doing. And if you
Yeah.
do those things, then you're going to start to create a culture that's purpose driven, which is going to give you a competitive advantage as opposed to protection and compliance.
Mm,
Because for those of you out there who are living in those environments right now where people are worried about their heads getting cut off or losing their job, and you're carroting and sticking in them, all you're doing is creating compliance, no creativity,
that's
and you're
it.
going to die the death of a dinosaur.
Yep.
Mark my word.
Yep. Yep. And there'll be a plateau. They'll fall off the cliff like the dodo birds.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. The game
Awesome.
changed, folks. The game
Totally.
changed.
And pay the great thing about it is people still have a choice. People still have time to do that. It might take a perspective adjustment, and for some it might be an attitude adjustment, a perspective, but it can be done. Because the thing is and I've been firmly of the belief with all this technology that's sort of penetrating every nook and cranny of our lives. What still remains the clear differentiator is people still want to and crave the human connection.
Yes.
And so if you can be a good human, then you'll always have a role, you'll always have a place, and you'll be able to differentiate against all the other technology that's out there.
That's right. That's right. And everyone, if you look at, just what I always say too is all this disruption and the change that's going on is actually a gift.
Mm,
It's a signal. It's, we all have seeds of greatness, and this disruption that's going on, it's just breaking your seeds open, man.
that's
Let
it.
them like take root and enjoy the ride. You always have to go down before you rise up, so you got to
Totally.
build some roots in that transformational leadership, build the skills, and so you can give it back out to the people that are following you, and just enjoy the ride, because it's an evolution, but the world needs your leadership now more than ever.
Totally. Totally. Because there is a
Answer the
massive
call.
leadership voice. Absolutely. Answer the call from the
Answer
from the
the
hero's
call.
journey.
Phone's
Absolutely.
ringing, baby. Are you going to pick it up?
Totally. Totally. So, Rhonda, this has been a phenomenal conversation. I'm so glad we got to connect. For people who'd like to connect with you, and learn a bit more about what you do in terms of speaking, but also get access to your book, where's the best place for them to do that?
They can the book is available on Amazon and Apple Books. So if you
Hmm.
like audio, you can get it on an audiobook. It's called The Spirit of Selling. So the spirit of selling is that, flow state, right? When you're really enjoying it. And so you can get it there. You can find me on LinkedIn.
Hmm.
And I'll give you the link to the article we were discussing. We could probably put that in the show notes, and there's
Yeah,
there's contact information in there too. But
yeah,
Rhonda, if you go to my website, it's www.rhonda with an H, Rhonda, Petit, Petit.com. And information on the book and my services and things like that are all there. Speaking workshops.
perfect. I'll put all of that in the show notes, including the article. And all good. Rhonda, an absolute pleasure. Thank you for being a guest on the podcast. It's been a great
Thank you so
conversation,
much. Yeah,
and keep up
thanks
the
so
great
much for
work.
having me. I really had fun bantering around. I hope everyone else out there enjoyed the conversation as well.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Exceptional Sales Leader podcast. I trust the information in this episode has been helpful in your journey towards becoming exceptional. And remember, please take the time to rate the show, subscribe to the show so other people can find it. But also, if I can help you, jump on my calendar, go to leadwithdarren.com and let's have a conversation about how I can help you along your journey to being exceptional.